Do you regularly ask your clients for feedback in your business? Not just testimonials, but actual feedback. If not, then this episode is for you. Client feedback is my secret weapon for crafting an effective and strategic brand. And in this episode, I'm sharing exactly how you can use client feedback to help refine your offerings, messaging, and overall brand and marketing strategy to book more ideal clients and grow your business. Welcome to the Six Figure Brand Podcast, where each week we're pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to build a six-figure business as an online service provider. I'm your host, Morgan. I'm a branding expert, online agency owner, mom of two, and military spouse, and I'm obsessed with helping entrepreneurs like you understand the ins and outs of branding so that you can use it to grow your business without sacrificing your sanity. Whether you're just starting out or focused on scaling, we're diving into everything you need to build a profitable and sustainable online business. Let's get to it. When I did a brand refresh for Spect & Co. back in 2022, and I talk a little bit about this in episode 1, I spent several days sifting through over 300 pages of client feedback from the previous few years in business. The things I learned by doing this were a major catalyst for business growth that I saw the following year because I was able to use that feedback to inform changes I made to both my packages and offerings, but most importantly, the way I was talking about my services. Today, we're going to dive into how to ask your clients for meaningful feedback, what to do with both positive and constructive feedback, and how to incorporate client feedback into your brand and marketing strategy. First, I want to talk about the difference between a testimonial and actual feedback. So whenever I ask my clients, and I do this on most discovery calls, definitely during a brand strategy intensive, do you collect feedback from your clients? Almost everyone says yes, but what they really mean is that they collect testimonials. And if I can impart upon you one thing from this episode, it is going to be that a testimonial is not feedback. Now, both testimonials and feedback are useful for your business. They're just useful for different reasons. So testimonials are designed to highlight positive experiences that your clients have had with you and build social proof that you can use on your website, social media, etc. They're super useful for marketing, but they don't necessarily always give you actionable insights. People are typically writing these with the intention of helping you look good and book prospective clients, which we love to see, but there's another side to that. Feedback helps you actually improve your services and processes and client experience. So this is more about understanding what worked, but also what didn't work, how you can do better, and how you can really capitalize on the things that you're already doing well. Unfortunately, constructive feedback is honestly more useful than positive feedback. So here's an example. If a client says, working with so-and-so was amazing, highly, highly recommend, that's a great testimonial, but it doesn't tell you anything about why it was amazing or any things that could be improved. So you can't really do anything with that other than say, hey, everybody, this person thought that working with me was amazing, which again is great, but is not actually useful feedback. So let's talk about good and bad feedback. I like to refer to these as positive and constructive feedback because I don't actually think bad feedback is bad. I think it's extremely useful. But let's talk first about handling positive feedback. So first and most useful is any positive feedback gives you great little snippets for things to use to refine your marketing and messaging. So we want to look for patterns here. What are clients consistently saying that they love? And then try and work those phrases into your marketing copy. So for example, one of the things that I found whenever I was doing kind of this brand refresh process for my own business was that, I kid you not, nearly every single client said something along the lines of, I feel so much more confident now that I've refreshed my branding, or now that I've worked with Spect & Co. So now my tagline for my business is build your confidence and book more clients, because that's what they're looking for. They want to build their confidence. And I learned that by asking for feedback over and over and over again. So this is kind of where you're able to write copy and create marketing that has your prospective clients and stuff saying things like, oh my gosh, I felt like you were speaking directly to me. It's because you're using their language. The second thing we can do with positive feedback is to really identify what is working well so that you can double down on those strengths and highlight them in your marketing. So if people are really loving a specific deliverable or a certain way that your process works or whatever, then play that up in your marketing. For example, my clients love that we send weekly updates every week and say, here's what we worked on this week, here's what we're working on next week, here's what we still need from you. So now whenever I'm on a sales call, I make sure to mention those for prospective clients so that they know, hey, we're going to always keep you in the loop about the status of your project. I didn't know that was one of the biggest selling points about me versus other designers. And the way that I found that out was, again, by asking for feedback. And then finally, you can use this feedback to kind of cherry pick who you want to ask for more in-depth testimonials for. So you can send follow-ups and say, hey, would you be open to expanding on your feedback into a longer form case study or a video testimonial or what have you, and then that can help you create more social proof, more content, etc. Now, let's talk about the more sticky one, what to do with negative or constructive feedback. First and foremost, don't panic. I am a grade A people pleaser, so it sucks for me whenever somebody has something bad to say about working with me or my team or what have you. So I get it. And you want to take it personally and like burn your business to the ground and be like, oh my gosh, this person hates me. I can never show my face on the internet again. Please don't do that. Please, please don't do that. Seriously, don't panic. Negative feedback, first of all, isn't a personal attack. And second of all, it is a gold mine for things you can do to improve your business. And I know that we all want to make our businesses better. Listening to constructive feedback and acting on it is the sole reason why I have made most of the improvements in my business that I've made. For example, I just talked about the weekly updates that we send. I haven't always done those. The reason why I started doing those was because I had probably 3 or 4 clients within the span of maybe like 6 months say, everything's really great and we love working with you, but we just don't really know when to expect things or like where exactly we are in the process or what's coming up next. So it just feels like maybe even though you're doing a great job, we're just a little bit in the dark. So I thought to myself, okay, what can I do to mitigate this? Started implementing the weekly check-ins, and now I get tons and tons of compliments about how people love that I do that. That would have never happened had. Is your brand and website feeling stale, outdated, and disjointed? If you're feeling a little called out, we should chat. Spect & Co is here to help you show up with more confidence and book more clients through personalized and strategic branding and website design. Anyone could design you a pretty logo, but our strategy-backed system has helped our clients triple their audience size, double their revenue year over year, and increase their rates by over 30%. If that sounds too good to be true, I promise it's not. Use the link in the show notes to book a free discovery call so we can chat about what strategic branding and web design could mean for your business. I not ask people for constructive feedback. Secondly, and I mentioned this earlier in the positive feedback section, but look for patterns. So is this a one-time issue or is it a recurring theme? If it's something that only happens once, there could be 100 different reasons why. Somebody could be just having a bad day. It could be just a fluke that something kind of fell through the cracks. But those one-time things, I wouldn't really stress about. I wouldn't say ignore them completely, but don't feel like you need to like overhaul your process to fix one issue one person had one time. Now, if you're getting multiple people having kind of the same point that they're making, then I would say that it's time to address it, whether that's with your team, within your processes, changing some of your packages, changing the way that you're explaining things to people, etc. It's going to depend what that piece of feedback is. But if you're seeing it happen on a semi-regular basis, so like the example I used was a handful of clients within like 6 months, then I think it's worth taking the time to address. And then finally, you're the business owner. You get to decide whether or not it's valid. Not all negative feedback requires action. Sometimes it's an issue of the client's expectations versus reality. This happens to us a lot in the design world where people just don't really understand what's possible, what's not possible, what goes into things. And it's a bummer when they feel let down, but sometimes there's just not a lot you can do about it. Again, I said this before, sometimes somebody's just having a bad day and you are the unfortunate person that they decided to take it out on. And that really, really sucks, but you can't let that drive the way that you do business. And then finally, and this is a huge one, so really pay attention here. Before you go making big changes to your business based on somebody's negative feedback, truly, truly ask yourself, do I want more of that type of client? And if the answer is yes, then make some changes. If not, move along. So, for example, if someone is super mad that it takes me a day and a half to respond to an email, it's a bummer for me to hear that they're upset, but it's not realistic for me to respond to emails within a few minutes or even a few hours. So that's not something that I'm willing to compromise. And clients who need that immediate response, unfortunately, are just not the type of client that I want more of. So I'm going to hear that feedback and let it go. And I'm not going to make that change to my business because those clients are not in alignment with the ideal client that I'm trying to attract. And then finally, how do we respond? So I would say it's up to you whether or not you respond, and you kind of have to do a gut check of, is a response warranted? Is responding gonna either make them feel better or make me feel better? Sometimes no. And in that case, I would say just let it go and move on. Other times, yes, if that's a relationship you really value, then they're going to appreciate that you heard their feedback and you're going to take whatever action. If you do respond, I would say try and put it in a drawer for a day, right? So write your response, sit on it. You don't need to say anything immediately. Make sure that this isn't an emotionally charged thing. Acknowledge their feedback, thank them, and let them know what steps, if any, you're going to take to correct this in the future. And just say, hey, I really appreciate your feedback and I want you to know that this matters to us and we're doing something about it. But again, you don't owe anyone a response as long as you're okay with the consequence that maybe that client's not going to hire you again in the future. And sometimes that's totally okay. Okay, so let's talk about how to stay objective and not take feedback personally. Like I said, I'm a big people pleaser, and I'm sure that many of you listening are too. So the whole don't take things personally bit is a lot easier said than done. But here's 4 little tips that help me. So first and foremost is it's really important that we recognize that their feedback is about the experience of working with your business, not about you as a person. They're not saying, Morgan's a terrible person and I hate her and I hope her business fails because I didn't send them an update one week. I know sometimes we can kind of spiral and think that that's how they feel, like impose our own worst case scenario on them, but really, really try not to do that. And just remember that business is just business. Nothing in business is personal. And I know that our businesses are our babies. And so it's really hard to separate the two, but I remind myself of that often. Next, I would say separate the emotions from the data, right? So if you get one really upset client who's just like going off on you, let's not forget that you probably have 100 clients who are singing your praises and referring all of their friends to you and can't say enough good things about you. So try not to let one negative comment outshine, 10, 20, 50, 100 positive comments. This is where we, again, want to pay attention to, is this a pattern? If not, move on, let it go. Maybe they're just having a bad day. If it is a pattern, then what are we going to do about that? Third is going to be shifting your mindset. So don't look at constructive feedback as a criticism. Look at it as an opportunity for growth. I now, and it's taken a lot of work to get here, and to the point where if I get somebody saying, hey, I wasn't super happy with this, or this wasn't really what I was expecting, I legitimately get excited about it now because it's kind of a fun little challenge for me of like, okay, what little tweaks can I make to our process or our systems to make this better so that we go from somebody being frustrated by this to future clients like being so happy and raving about it. And then finally, set mental boundaries. So if a client is just being rude or unrealistic, and this is like a gut feeling, right? When there's somebody that you're like, there's nothing I can do to make this person happy. That's not constructive feedback. And it's okay for you to ignore and filter out unhelpful opinions and say, okay, this isn't the type of client I want to work with anymore, and that's fine, and we're going to just move along. Next, I want to talk about how to ask for feedback and what questions to include. Please do not send your clients an email and say, do you have any feedback about working with me? We want to make it as easy as possible on them. So first of all, timing really matters here, right? There's a couple of ways that you can do this. It depends on your business and your services and your clients. First is immediately after you complete a project. The benefit here is that everything is fresh in their mind and they're gonna remember all the things that they loved and didn't love about working with you. So you probably get the most like real-time feedback, and they're probably more likely to respond because it's something that is still happening in the present for them. You're not saying, hey, remember that thing we did together 6 months ago? Could you give me some feedback on it? And they're busy doing other things. The other option is after some time has passed. So the drawback here is you probably will get less responses because people are just busy, frankly, but it does give you the opportunity to see a little bit more long-term impact of the results of your guys' work together and how things have played out on a longer timeline. So I actually do both in my business. I will email them a feedback form immediately when we're done working together. And then about 6 months later, I will send them another form saying, hey, it's been a few months. I just want to check in and see how things are going. Is there anything we could do for you? I would love if you would fill out this form and give us some feedback on how working with Spect & Co. has impacted your business in the long term. And the most important thing is make it easy for people to respond. So things like a Google form, type form, a Dubsado form, whatever. And we want to get like pretty specific with the questions here, right? So I like to do kind of a combination of yes and no questions and some open-ended questions. But again, we don't want to say, what's your feedback about working together? That is too difficult for somebody to answer. And they're just going to be like, well, shoot, I don't know how to put that into words. And they're going to move on. I like to start out by asking just some really easy yes and no questions. Do you feel like your project was completed successfully? Were you happy with the time frame that it took to complete your project? Overall, did you feel supported throughout our time working together? How happy were you with the level of communication? Do you feel like you were kept informed of your project status at all times? How likely are you to recommend us to a friend? Those are literally, they can go through and check the boxes in like 10 seconds, easy to answer, and it gives me some really valuable data. As far as open-ended questions go, I like to ask, how has working with us made a difference in your business and your life? What stood out or was unique about working with us? What's the biggest result you've gotten since working with us? What has the feedback been on your new branding? What's something that you learned throughout working with us? What advice would you have for someone wanting to work on their branding and their website? How confident do you feel marketing your business now that you have an updated brand? And finally, was there anything that we could have done to make the process run more smoothly for you? And then as a little bonus, I always like to include like a checkbox or something at the end to say, hey, can I use some of your responses for testimonials on my website, just to make sure that they are okay with their responses, like being made public. So as you can see, client feedback is really, truly a goldmine whenever it comes to brand strategy and messaging, if you approach it the right way. So my call to action for you is to put together a feedback form and send it to 3 clients that you've worked with recently. I'm going to link a Google Doc with my feedback questions that you can literally copy and paste into your type form or your Dubsado or whatever to make this super easy on you. But yeah, I think you will be surprised at how valuable the data that you get from requesting true feedback from your clients is versus just saying, hey, could you write me a testimonial? And to wrap this one up, I would like to shout out my VA agency, Prestridge & Co. Sadie Prestridge is a good friend of mine. We have been in each other's world since I want to say 2018. I hired her as my VA in 2019, and as she has grown her business into a full-blown VA and kind of business management agency, I have been along with her for the ride, and it's been super cool to witness. There is no way that I could do all the things I do, including create this podcast, without Sadie and her team. And if you are looking for executive virtual assistant support, I would highly, highly recommend reaching out to them. I will link Sadie's info in the show notes, and thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in to the Six Figure Brand Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to rate the show and leave a review on whatever app you're listening on. And as a thank you, I'll send you coffee on me. Yes, I'm serious. As a smaller show for now, you taking the time to do this makes a huge impact on how we can reach more people and how I can continue to create this content for free. When you take a screenshot of your review, follow and tag me on Instagram at Spect & Co. I'll send you a $5 Starbucks gift card. As always, don't forget to check out the show notes for any links or resources I mentioned during the episode. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week.